Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Alright, and now here I am, not really continuing with my Christmas reviews for the year, but yeah, here I am to continue with, I guess, my reviews for the month. Like I said before, in honor of, like, the new Jumanji sequel being released, like I said, I'd make a review for the original movie, and so here I am to do that. Here I am with my review of Jumanji. So, yeah, I have really always loved this movie. Really, I mean, yeah, the original Jumanji, I just really have loved ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I've watched this film so many times since I was a little kid, and yeah, I just really have loved it. I mean, this really is just a really enjoyable movie. I mean, yeah, the critics overall were really mixed on this. I mean, the critic reception for this is just right split right down the middle. Really, I mean, this movie has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and so yeah, the critics really were mixed on it, but audiences overall really did seem to like this movie, and yeah, this movie it is definitely really good. I mean, of course, the movie stars Robin Williams, and yeah, the film also has like people like Bonnie Hunt, Kirsten Dunst, Bradley Pierce, David Alan Grier, B.B. Newworth, Jonathan Hyde, and yeah, they all are really good in this movie. I mean, yeah, the premise for this movie is actually a pretty dark premise for it. I mean, it's basically of course, Jumanji is a board game, and it contains a jungle inside or something. And throughout this film, it's everything inside of the game is being released from it. And yeah, it is a pretty intense film. I mean, yeah, it has kind of a good mix of well, this movie is really more a fantasy adventure style movie, and it does have some elements of comedy in it also. It does have some funny scenes in this movie, and there's also some real bone chilling scenes in this film also. It has an even mix of comedic elements and also some intimidating elements as well. And yeah, you really do get that. I remember as a kid there were certain parts of this film that really did really send some chills down my spine, and it really did get me a little nervous. I mean, even when I had already watched the movie before, even when I would watch it again, I would still get kind of some chills when I would watch this movie sometime. And yeah, it just is a really good movie. The film is directed by Joe Johnston, who has also directed films such The Rocketeer, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jurassic Park 3, The First Captain America, and so yeah, and yeah, Joe Johnston overall he's a pretty decent director, and yeah, he did do a good job with the direction of this movie. Yeah, yeah, and of course, this film also does have great music from James Horner. I mean, like I was saying last June when I made the video of the top 10 greatest movie composers. I mean, yeah, James Horner really is a really, I think he's a very overlooked movie composer, because yeah, he has had a lot of really great music in the movies that he's composed, and yeah, this movie is no exception. The music in this film is just really awesome. I mean, yeah, and the effects in this movie are actually pretty good for the time, and I think they even still do hold up today. I mean, it does have some pretty good effects for 1995. I mean, yeah, with all the animals here, I mean, you know that they really are just they are computer generated and stuff, and yeah, the animals in this film really do look real. You have lion, you have stampede, monkeys, and you just have a bunch of other computer generated animals in this film, and they all really do look pretty realistic. I mean, yeah, the animals are really done really well to really look believable as if they are real animals. So yeah, it's I really do like that about the film. And yeah, it just is really an overall a really good movie. I mean, it just has a good cast for this movie, a good story, good elements to it, good direction. Yeah, just overall, I really can't find not much wrong with the movie. I mean, I'm sure it does have some flaws to it. I mean, I saw Siskel and Ebert's review of this movie. They didn't really like the movie because they just felt that it was really just all effects really, and the story really wasn't the best. At least that's what they felt. Like Roger Ebert has said a gloomy special effects extravaganza filled with grotesque images generating fear and despair. So, yeah, Roger Ebert really wasn't a big fan of this movie, neither was Siskel. And yeah, it's just yeah, overall, like critics overall, they were like I said earlier, they were like split on it. But yeah, overall, this is like a pretty good movie, and I really do love it. Loved it ever since I was a kid, and I still do love it now. I mean, yeah, I just really like yeah, no matter how much I watch this movie, I just really have always loved it. So yeah, just an overall really good movie. I would give this film like 3.5 stars out of 4. Yeah, it definitely is like it was one of my favorite movies growing up, and I still really do enjoy it a lot today. So yeah, just a really good movie. All right, so yeah, let me just get right into it. All right, so the film opens in the year 1869, and it's like this town in New Hampshire. I'm not sure if this is like an actual town in New Hampshire called Brantford, and it shows like these two boys, Caleb and Benjamin, burying a chest, and as they were burying it, like you could hear like the sound of like drumming and coming from it. Yeah, and yeah, they then just ended up like burying the chest and then fleeing. Yeah, and then it then like cuts to the year 1969, and it shows that like a young Alan Parrish is like riding his bike through the town, and you know Alan is like a, I guess he's like a real famous person in the town because yeah, it's like shown that Alan has like some kind of relation to like the former General Angus Parrish, and he's Angus Parrish was like one of Alan's ancestors. It's really never actually revealed like what Alan's relation to the general was, but yeah, it's just known that Alan is like related to the general somehow. Yeah. And then Alan was then like being chased by bullies led by like I guess like one of Alan's like enemies or something, Billy Jessup, and they like chased Alan down to his dad's shoe factory, and no, you know, one of Alan's dad's employees, Carl Bentley, like was showing Alan a new shoe prototype that he had made that he was going to show Alan's dad later in the day, and he was just going to say that if his dad likes him, that he could really like do really well, and this he could actually get like everybody to wear these shoes somehow. Yeah. But then, like, after, like, Alan's dad, like, was talking to him about why he really was at the factory, and, like, when he found out, really, that Alan was being, like, bullied by Billy Jessup, Alan was just told by his dad that he really has to face his fears, and so then he sent Alan off. But, like, Alan, like, before he did, like, he ended up, like, placing Carl's shoe, like, on a conveyor belt for some kind of machine, and the shoe ended up, like, being brought into the machine, and the machine ended up being like damaged somehow, and the shoe ended up being destroyed. And then yeah, Carl ended up like just saying that he was responsible for what happened, and then it was like later on revealed that Carl ended up being fired after that. And then Billy and all the others like confronted Alan because apparently like Alan is friends with Billy's girlfriend, and like Billy was like confronting Alan about that, about spending time with his girlfriend. And then yeah, Billy and the bullies then just jumped Alan and stole his bike. And then Alan could hear like some drumming noise, and then he followed the drumming. And he's still like the construction site like right by his dad's factory. And then he then like dug up the chest as that was buried, and then yeah, he opened it up, and then he found the Jumanji board game inside, and then yeah, he brought it home with him, and then yeah, as Alan like was pulling out a couple of game pieces from the game after he arrived home, he like ended up dropping them, and the pieces then like just like went to the fell onto the starting positions of the game lines by themselves, and yeah. And then later on, like that night, Alan's dad like had some sort of event he was a guest at or something, and then before Alan's parents had left for that, like they were speaking to Alan, and Alan's dad was just telling him that he was proud of Alan facing his fears, despite the fact that he really was outnumbered by the bullies. And since Alan really did like face his fears, Alan's dad like just felt that Alan was ready to go to a boarding school called Cliffside. And he was just telling Alan that parishes really have been going to that school well, like for generations really. And Alan really like wasn't happy about the fact that it really was like really just being forced on him really. And so then it turned to like a heated exchange between Alan and his dad, and finally led Alan to finally just say to his dad that maybe he doesn't even want to be a parish anymore. And yeah, Alan's dad just told him that he wouldn't be until he started acting like one, and he just told Alan that they'd be taking Alan to the school the following Sunday, and then Alan just told his dad that he wasn't never going to talk to him again. And then Alan had plans to run away, and as he was about to, then like Sarah Whittle, who was like Billy's girlfriend and Alan's friend, like arrived and brought his bike back, and then like Sarah could hear like the drumming from Jumanji also, and so then Alan then showed the Jumanji board game to Sarah, and he offered Sarah like if she wanted to play with him, but yeah, Sarah just like declined, just saying that she stopped playing board games 5 years ago, and then she just dropped the dice, but the game like took it as a roll, and then one of the game pieces just like moved on its own. Oh, and then like in the middle of the game board there was like a glass circle or something, like giving messages every time, well, riddles, I guess, to for every roll, and then like it was just like a riddle about like bats, and then like Alan and Sarah could hear like bat chirping or screeching from like the fireplace. And as Alan was gonna put the game away, like he then like got surprised by the uh, a clock chiming, and then Alan ended up like inadvertently like dropping the dice, and the game took that as a roll too. And then like the message to Alan was that he must wait in the jungle until the dice would read 5 or 8. And then yeah, Alan then ended up like being sucked into the game, and then Sarah ended up like being chased out of the house by like the swarm of bats that now emerged from the fireplace. Yeah. And then it faded to 26 years later, in the year 1995, and now uh, now Nora Shepherd was now moving into the old parish house along with her niece and nephew Judy and Peter, and it's revealed that like Judy and Peter's parents like ended up like dying in an accident in like the previous winter and stuff, and then yeah, they were just like really in awe of like how big the parish place was and stuff. And then one night, like as Peter was taking like something to the attic, like there was like a bat inside of the attic, and yeah, it just like it scared like Peter and Judy and everyone. And then yeah, the following morning like an exterminator was called, but there was no bat found. And then yeah, the exterminator was then just telling Judy and Peter that bats really aren't the thing to worry about in the house, and he was like telling them about Alan and Parrish. And yeah, there was like a story going around that Alan had disappeared because like his dad had murdered him or something, and that he like his dad like just like chopped him up in a bunch of pieces and just like hid him like in the walls or stuff. Yeah. And then like later that night, as Judy and Peter were in bed, they could like hear drumming as well. Well, and then yeah, the next morning, then they heard it again, and then they followed it up to the attic again, and then they eventually found the Jumanji board game, and then yeah, they then like started to play it too, and then like Judy ended up rolling, and then yeah, then like mosquitoes then end up emerging from the game, like really enormous mosquitoes, those and stuff, and then yeah, then they eventually like set the mosquitoes off, yeah, and then yeah, then Peter then ended up rolling, and then like then with Peter's roll, like in this game, like anytime someone rolled doubles, they'd get another turn and stuff, and so Peter ended up like rolling snake eyes, and then yeah, with like Peter's roll there, and like there were like some monkeys that emerged from the game, and these monkeys really are not like any monkeys that I've ever seen before. I mean, have any of you actually seen any monkeys like the ones in this movie? I'll put a link in the description to a picture that shows like the monkeys from this movie, and yeah, you tell me if you've actually seen any monkeys like this, because I sure haven't. Yeah, and then yeah, since Peter rolled doubles, then he got another turn, and so he rolled again, and he ended up like rolling a 5, and then a lion then ended up emerging from the game, and then yeah, the lion ended up like chasing Judy and Peter down to the lower floor, and then yeah, and then showed then Alan as an adult then in the game, and then yeah, he really like ended up like locking up the lion in a bedroom and stuff, yeah. And once Peter and Judy like finally discovered that that was Alan, then like they were just telling Alan that the house really had been emptied for a long time, and everyone had thought that Alan had died and stuff. And then yeah, as Alan was like running outside, then he like came across a cop that was eventually like revealed to be Carl. Well, yeah. And then like as Alan was well, yeah, as like Carl was then like talking to Alan, Judy, and Peter. Then, as Carl had his back turned, like there were a couple of the monkeys that ended up hijacking Carl's police car and just took it off on a joyride and stuff. And Carl chased them down. And then, yeah, Alan then just went up to try to find his parents, and then he eventually came to his dad's shoe factory. And yeah, as he was like looking, it just like showed that the town really had become like a pretty big like mess and stuff, and just basically like a wreck now ever since like what happened to Al before, yeah. And it showed that the shoe factory really had just become like trash and stuff. And then like it showed there was like another guy now I guess like living in Alan's dad's old office, and then the guy was just like telling the reason that the factory had closed down was because Alan's dad really was like just ended up like abandoning the shoe business and trying to find Alan and stuff, but yeah, of course he never did. And the guy just, after Alan asked the guy if the parishes were actually still around, the guy just told Alan that the parishes were over on Adams Street, which ended up like being a cemetery, and both Alan's parents were dead. And it was interesting how the death of Alan's parents, like his mom and his dad, just died like a few months apart from each other, which I thought was kind of strange, yeah. And yeah, and Judy and Peter were trying to convince Alan to try to help them finish the game, but Alan, of course, like wanted no part of the game at all. Oh yeah, and then like it just like showed then like it was revealed that like there were like a bunch of other people in the town that ended up like getting these weird bites, which were of course from the mosquitoes, and they ended up like getting real sick and stuff. Oh yeah, and eventually, like later on, like Alan had like shaved and cut his hair down because yeah, before Alan just had like a huge beard and long hair, and so he cut that down and shaved the whole beard off and stuff. And then eventually, like after like Peter said that Alan was just afraid of the game, then Alan then agreed to like help Judy and Peter finish. And then yeah, Judy and Peter tried to continue on with the game, and Judy tried to roll, but of course like nothing happened. And yeah, Alan then discovered that he really did have to play to finish the game, but of course, like, it wasn't his turn yet, so they needed Sarah. And so then they went to, like, Sarah's old house that they thought, and then, yeah, it, like, showed them, like, there, it was supposedly belonging to a new person, like Madame Serena for psychic readings and stuff. And as they were trying to ask Madame Serena where Sarah was, it eventually was revealed that it actually was Sarah. And Alan then just like revealed who he was to her, and then yeah, Sarah was just like in total shock that Alan was still around, and then she just fainted. It was hilarious. Then like after she did, like Peter just like randomly said, "You killed her," which I thought was funny. Yeah. Yeah, and Sarah was just like how Alan was. She really didn't want any part of the game, but then yeah, Alan then just basically tricked her into rolling and stuff. And then yeah, then like there were then like a bunch of vines and plants that ended up like emerging from the game, and they were just like coming through all the walls and stuff. And eventually, like one vine ended up grabbing a hold of Peter's leg and just pulling him, and then it was then showing that it was like leading to like a enormous yellow carnivorous plant pod and stuff. And they eventually ended up like sending the pod off after like Alan had sliced up the vine for the pod. Yeah, and then yeah, then yeah, all four of them then agreed that they would continue to play the game until they finished. And then yeah, Alan took his turn, and his next role ended up like emerging like a hunter, Van Pelt, who well, Alan had actually met in the jungle, and Van Pelt was like trying to kill Alan, and so then he was like chasing Alan out of the house and through the blocker stuff, and then, yeah, Carl then came across the Van Pelt also, and then, he tried to, like, get Van Pelt to surrender, but yeah, Van Pelt then just shot down Carl's car and stuff, and but he eventually ran out of ammo, and so then yeah, Alan was able to escape, and then yeah, Carl then just drove off in his destroyed car, really. And then after Alan arrived back at the house, like Alan and Sarah were just like arguing about like a bunch of stuff. They were like talking about Van Pelt and why he is really after Alan and stuff, and yeah, they were just then talking about like Billy and stuff, and then yeah, Judy then ended up rolling, and then she ended up like emerging a stampede from the game, which consisted of like rhinos, elephants, and zebras, and there were a few pelicans like flying along with the stampede, and then one pelican then ended up like stealing, snatching the game board away. And then yeah, Alan tried to get it back, and then he like bribed the pelican with a fish, and then the pelican just ended up like knocking the game into the water, and then yeah, Peter then just ended up like recovering the game, and as they were like walking back to the house, then Carl arrived again, and then he like accused Alan of being responsible for the trouble. Of course, like Carl didn't know he was Alan yet. And then yeah, he then decided to take Alan in for questioning. And then Peter tried to end the game on his own, but yeah, he then like was trying to cheat to do it. And so then like his piece then just like ended up like moving back to start. And yeah, the message was just that since a law of Jumanji was broken, Peter would end up being slipped back even more than his token. And then it was like showing Peter's hands were like really hairy. And yeah, and then like Peter was then just like really starting to transform into a monkey himself. Yeah. And then like Carl was like trying to talk to Alan again, and then yeah, Alan was just like telling Carl that he knows like all about him and stuff, and eventually like just revealed to Carl that he was Alan. Yeah. And then as like Sarah, Judy, and Peter like went into town, like it showed them like Stampede was wreaking havoc. At one point, Peter was in a car, and the Stampede just ended up like running right over the car and just crushed it. Really, yeah. And Van Pelt eventually like just ended up snatching the game and like tried and went into like a store, and Sarah, Judy, and Peter gave chase, and then they were just like trying to evade Van Pelt after snatching the game back, and then yeah, Carl then eventually like let Alan go, but then yeah, Alan like cuffed Carl to the police car, and then but yeah, after like hearing reports of like Van Pelt, Sarah, Judy, and Peter at the store, then like Alan ended up like driving the car to the store, or then they eventually ended up arriving, and then they ended up like crashing right through the walls because yeah, there was like a leakage of brake fluid in the car, and they just ended up like driving right through the store and demolishing it really, and Van Pelt ended up like being buried in like a huge pile of paint cans and stuff. Yeah, yeah, and then they eventually like arrived back home, and then yeah, it just then like showed the house was just like completely covered in vines and stuff. And then yeah, as they continued the game, then Sarah ended up like rolling a monsoon to start, and it was raining inside the house and a huge flood, and they ended up being pursued by a couple of crocodiles. And then the flood then just ended up like spreading to around the town after like it busted down the two front doors, of course, and it was just flooding into the town and stuff. Yeah. And then the next roll, then Alan ended up like rolling some quicksand, and Alan ended up like sinking down into the floor and stuff. And as they were trying to pull him out, then like Judy ended up rolling her turn, and then like she was ended up being forced to go back a turn. And then the floor ended up being brought back to normal, but Alan and Sarah were like trapped inside and stuff. And then yeah, eventually yeah, Peter ended up like rolling up some huge spiders and stuff, and then yeah, then uh, Sarah ended up like rolling an earthquake, and then yeah, like the earthquake was like making everything shake up, and then it was making like the ground and the house really start to split, and the house was just splitting right down the middle, and then yeah, Alan then like slipped out from Sarah's grip, and Alan like was like swinging from a vine down to the living room with the game, and then yeah, Van Pelt then arrived again, and then he had Alan like basically cornered and stuff, and then yeah, he made Alan like drop the dice that were in his hand, and then yeah, Alan ended up like rolling a 3, and then that put Alan into the end of the game, and then yeah, Alan ended up winning. And then, yeah, Alan then, like, said Jumanji, and then Van Pelt was, like, fired a bullet at him, but then, like, the bullet and everything else ended up, like, being sucked in. Like, everything that came out from Jumanji then ended up being sucked back in. It showed, like, the monkeys and the stampede were being sucked in, and then it showed, like, the lion joining being sucked in, and Van Pelt then sucked in. Yeah, everything from the game ended up being sucked back in. And then Alan and Sarah were clutching each other, and then, yeah, after everything then went back into the game, then, and Alan and Sarah then just found themselves back in 1969 as kids, basically back on the night when they had started the game. And yeah, Alan and his dad then apologized to each other, and then Alan's dad told him that he didn't have to go to the Cliffside School if he didn't want to. And then, yeah, Alan then just told his dad that what happened with the shoe wasn't Carl's fault and he did it. And yeah, Alan and Sarah then ended up like being, then just threw the Jumanji game into a river and stuff, and then yeah, they were just saying that they'd never forget each other or Judy and Peter, and then they ended up kissing. Yeah. And then eventually like faded back into, well, it cut later back to 1995 and like the altered time, and it was like there was a Christmas party going on. I guess yeah, there is a Christmas scene in this movie. I guess yeah. And life is a lot better for Alan. Yeah, his parents were still alive and everything, and Alan and Sarah were now married. And then they met like Judy and Peter and their parents and stuff. And then like Jim was offered a job by Alan to work basically for the shoe factory. It was funny at one point, like Judy and Peter's parents were talking about taking a trip, which was actually like the cause of their death before. And then like it was funny, Alan and Sarah just ended up shouting "No!" to stop him. And then yeah, Jim then was just telling him that he could start probably the following week and stuff, and then, yeah. And the movie then just, like, ended with, there were, like, two girls, like, on a beach, I guess, in France, and then they could hear the drumming noise, and then it showed, like, the game, like, being like, partially buried in sand, and then it just then ended after that. And so yeah, but obviously of course like the sequel isn't going to follow up on that. The sequel's going to be like different from this and really not continue from the events on how this film ended. It's obviously going to be something else. So yeah, but yeah, this was definitely like a real good movie. I really have always loved this movie. Like I said, 3.5 stars out of 4. Really have loved this movie, and I am pretty, like I said before, I am extremely curious to see what the sequel will have to offer. Yeah, the sequel is coming out like this upcoming Wednesday, just a couple of days now. And so yeah, and I am planning to go see the movie. I'm planning on to go see it this weekend sometime. But yeah, once I see the movie, like after Christmas, I will make a video to give my thoughts on the sequel once I go see it, and I will give my thoughts on the movie. Alright, but anyway, alright, so yeah, that does it for my review of Jumanji. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.